All right, so you're trying to find the limit of this fraction as x approaches infinity. Now, I guess if you're thinking about it directly and thinking of it as subbing in infinity and infinity, then it's probably not very clear because you're going to have infinity over infinity. But when you do questions like this, remember, factorize if you can. And x squared minus 1 is something you should definitely know how to factorize. It's a difference of squares. Remember, a squared minus b squared equals a plus b, a minus b. And you might recall doing that quite a few times in times past. And so that then factorizes, which then means that this then cancels out, leaving you with 1 in the numerator. So you've got the limit as x approaches infinity of 1 over x plus 1. And now that you no longer have, like, now that the numerator is just 1 and the denominator gets big, this means that will approach 0. I think that will be enough for your answer, but if you think about it a bit more, just for your general purposes, this is going to be positive infinity. So that means the denominator will be positive, the numerator will be positive. So it's going to be a very small positive number. On the same note, we've got a, well, while you should do something like this to sort of get your answer, on the same note, you can actually have considered it sort of conceptually, which might be a bit more difficult for many students. Like the numerator goes to infinity, and so does the denominator. But because the denominator is squared and the numerator is just power 1, that means the denominator's infinity is a lot bigger than the numerator's infinity, right? Like as in a million compared to a million squared, well, the bigger x gets, the smaller the fraction gets because the denominator is the bigger x gets, the more times the denominator is bigger than the numerator, right? So the denominator is going to dwarf the numerator more and more as x goes to infinity. And for that reason, we can kind of assume it's 0 as well. You can also do what we mentioned earlier as well. So when we're doing limits with the graphs, we kind of showed you how we could approach this. So an alternative method to approach this is you could have divided everything by the highest power of x. Well, or just divide by x might work. Which means if the limit as x approaches infinity of x over x minus 1 over x, all over x squared over x minus 1 over x, which means you'll get 1 minus 1 over x, all over x minus 1 over x. Now that means that when x approaches infinity, those go to 0, right? The 1 over x goes to 0. So this approximates 1 minus 0 over x minus 0, which then basically means it's 1 over x as x goes to infinity, which again goes to 0 plus. Now, as I mentioned before, I don't really like that method as much, but many students do prefer that method over, I guess, something like this, because I think they might find it more difficult to factorize. But you can see the factorization method is a lot cleaner, whereas this involves a lot of fiddly division work.
Yeah.
And so that's how you, do that question.